Tony, if I could give you one thing in life, I would give you the ability to see yourself through my eyes. Only then would you realize how special you are to me. Friends, loved ones, and family. It is an honor to pay tribute today to this very special person. To some, he was Tony Montana. To many, he was Big Tony. And to others, he was Bono. Anthony Armbrister, who we affectionately know as Tony, had a big smile, an enormous heart, and he touched everyone he came in contact with. Let me begin by sharing how I met this remarkable man, Mr. Anthony Armbrister. I was always familiar with Mr. Armbrister as a customer in my grandfather's food store, Sugar Kid Bowl, where he always fondly talked about his beautiful daughter, Jessica. One day, I heard the news that Jessica's mom had passed away, and I too was deeply saddened. Since Mr. Armbrister, being a regular customer, came in the store, I spoke with him and I gave him my condolences. Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I felt the need to approach the father to talk to the daughter. And I asked Tony for Jessica's number. Tony smiled, he was very welcoming, and he gave me the phone number so I could give my condolences to Jessica. Well, 11 years later, you can guess how that story ended. Jessica and I have been married now, and this year we'll be celebrating 6 happy years. And God has blessed us with 2 beautiful daughters, Haley and Maya. My relationship with Tony grew when my wife and I purchased our first home. It was a fixer-upper, and it needed a lot of work. And that's where Big Tony, my father-in-law, came in. Tony helped us with everything. He was the plumber who installed the faucets, changed the toilet bowl, changed the water heater. He was the mason who laid all our tiles. He was the carpenter who installed all our cabinets, changed all our doors, changed all our windows, even put up the picture frames. That's my father-in-law. He was Mr. Fix-It. Now, if you really knew Tony, then you would know Tony did not always know time. But I didn't think that was intentional, because Tony has such a big heart, and he just had a problem saying no to people. I can recall countless times when I called Tony and asked him, Tony, what time are you coming? And Tony would tell me, Mo, I waiting on Tisa or Risa with the car, but I saw him come. An hour later, I called back, Tony, what time you coming? And then an hour ago, and I called him again, Tony, what time you coming? But you know what Tony said? Tony said, Mo, I'm sorry, but I had to go by Mom on Shirley Street to help her, or I had to go by Mommy through Charles and Vincent to help her. That was Tony. Tony was so passionate about the work that even when he was in pain, he still would do the work, and he refused to say no. If you ask Tony how he was, he would always say, I'm okay, I'm fine. Tony did everything he could to help Jessica and I feel comfortable at home. And we are so grateful and proud of the work he did. Tony treated me like a son. And he tried to teach me everything he knew. I value that tremendously because not many men take other men under their wings. They may pray for them, but they do not teach them how to do for themselves, how to survive on these streets. And I am forever grateful. He was never selfish in sharing the knowledge he acquired over these years to whoever was willing to learn from him. He was an excellent teacher. He taught all those young men around him like DJ, Nato, Frankie, Tehran, Therese, and even TC, his beautiful wife, his carpentry skills. Most people know this, but Tony would take TC with him to do his jobs. She was always by his side to assist him, and TC actually did the work better than Tony. That really speaks volumes about the teacher when a student can do the task that was taught to them better than the teacher. I can remember it like yesterday in 2010 when my wife and I decided to launch our business, Moses Water Depot, currently Just Right Convenience Store. Tony played a big role in helping us on our feet financially. The most significant part Tony played was he believed in us. And he supported us from day one. So Tony supported us when some of my own family didn't support me. And that meant a lot to me. Once again, Mr. Fix-It came to our rescue. Tony built our shelves, laid the tiles, worked on the roof on crutches. Ladies and gentlemen, on crutches. My father-in-law was more man than men who had two good legs. Tony and I had many long nights at the shop where some days we left at 12 a.m. just to make sure the job was done. And I can remember many nights my wife calling, honey, what time you coming home? And Tony shout out, just move with, here with me. That's the kind of dedication Tony had to his work, and I love him and I respect him for that. Presently, Just Right has been open now for 5 years, and a lot of people give you lip service where they say they will support you, but in reality, they don't. But my father-in-law was not like that. He was a humble man. He was not only there on day one when we opened the business and broke ground, but through the 5 years of existence, he has patronized us on a consistent basis. That was the type of father-in-law I had, and that is why I respect Tony so much. My father-in-law has poured a lot into us so that Jessica and I can stand confidently on our feet. At the shop, we close at 8:30, and usually at 8:25, Tony would always call and say, Mo, y'all don't close yet, I need a cold grape oil soda and a large honey bun. And trust me, we wouldn't close until Tony got that, because that was the type of relationship we had. Tony and I would have numerous conversations at the shop, and despite the outlook looked dim at times, I would always tell Tony, yes, we can. And we can overcome anything, whether family support us or not. Matthew chapter 5, verse 4, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Ladies and gentlemen, Tony was a Christian. He had faith, and he trusted in God. Tony, despite his health, always gave, and he was a blessing to everyone around him.
Yes, he was.
He never had a problem reaching in his pocket to help others. A life lesson we can take from Tony is that God places people in our lives, not just so that we can be so that they can be a blessing to us, but also so that we can be a blessing to them. About 3 weeks ago, the Christ the King Youth Chorale celebrated 5 years with our anniversary concert. Tony came on crutches to support us. He cried that night, and he was really proud of the work our ministry was doing. That was the first time he ever heard us sing. And that was the last time I ever saw Tony. He always supported his kids in whatever they did, whether it was award ceremonies, recitals, concerts. He would always make sure he was there in the crowd, cheering them on, and showing his love and support for all of them. Tony was very family-oriented. I could recall days when he would always spend time at his mother's house on Shirley Street, who he loved dearly, and he always told us about the stories of his mom and his sister. Tony would spend time also at his mother-in-law's house at Charles St. Vincent, and they were always welcoming to him, and they loved Tony. Tony would even spend time at his good friend Stedman's house, who was in a wheelchair, to help him. That was the kind of man my father-in-law was. Tony also would spend time by us, and sometimes he came by us just to iron Haley's uniform. To this day, every time we try to wash Haley's clothes, the crease, we can't wash out the crease. That's just how well Tony ironed those PE uniforms. And I am so grateful and thankful for God for lending a giant of a man to us. And I'm not referring to his size, but his heart. So my daughter Haley, he was Papa, and they would play peekaboo. where she always would burst out in laughter. Even Maya, as young as she is, found warmth in Tony's arms as her face lit up as she gazed in his eyes. Tony was humble. Tony was easygoing. Tony was compassionate. Tony was committed to his family. And so, Tony belongs to the ages now. I will miss those mornings when I had to pick Tony up for work sometimes and I would bang on the door shouting, Tony, Tony. And Tony would say, Mo, I coming now. TC, tell Mo, I coming now. Tony, goodbyes are not forever, are not the end. It simply means I'll miss you until we meet again. There are so much things that we don't want to happen, but have to accept. Things we don't want to know, but have to learn. And people we can't live without, but we have to let go. I know this time we have to let go, but our family will never forget Tony in our hearts. One day, if someone asks, when did Tony die? I will look at that individual and say, oh, he never died. For as long as I live, he lives here still. Rest in peace, Tony. Gone too soon.